Hey guys, it's Al and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm actually going to be telling you guys all about the mission I just finished up. I was sent on mission for the Divine for the past year. It started at the very top of the 2020 and I was sent to basically surrender my life to the Divine by going on mission into the homeless population of Los Angeles. It had started with me just being informed that I was going to be moving from my hometown of New Orleans and I was going to be moving to Los Angeles. And so I called a friend of mine who was an ex and I asked if I could stay there. And everything was set and I got on the bus. My cousin bought me the ticket and I was on my way. And then I guess I was in Savannah or somewhere in Arizona. In any event, I was on my way almost to California and they called and he said, "I'm sorry, but my roommate's threatened to leave if you show up here, so I'm going to have to pull out." And so I immediately knew it was part of the mission, and so I ended up on the streets of LA in my little Prada outfit with my little tote bag and my little laptop. I don't know where else I was going. I just knew I was going on a mission. I didn't, I think it was going to be glamorous. It wasn't. And so I ended up having a Google search what mission would be available, and the first one that popped up, the very top, said Union Rescue Mission on San Pedro on Skid Row. And so I was like, I'm from LA, I'm tough enough, I can handle it. And so I go, and as I leave about 2 blocks in, I start to see tent after tent after tent after tent of throwaway human beings. And what I mean by that is that they are obviously thrown away by society. Nobody gives a shit about them. And I don't mean to curse, but we're just going to go with the testimony here. And so as I'm walking, it just got progressively worse and darker, and it was so oppressive, and so I felt like I was in some third world country, and I know it was the United States, it was Los Angeles on top of it. And there were cops patrolling, trying to keep everybody safe, but it was just like seas of people that were just cast away, thrown away. And I specifically remember where I first got my heart jarred a little bit was when I saw a woman on the ground. There was a mattress, and she was in Daisy Dukes. They might have been Bloomers, to be honest with you, but they were quick at Daisy Dukes. And she threw her ass up at me, and she goes, "My dad used to fuck me when I was a baby, and I've been turned out every which way you want. Why'd you come in here? $5, like that." And my heart just went, no, thank you. But I didn't judge her. I absorbed her energy, and I could understand, and I was like, okay. And then I remember needles all over the ground, and I remember like fist fights and just turf war over tents and stuff like that. It was very suppressive and oppressive. So, but they were community, and that was the one thing that I was very taken back by. Like when the turf wars were happening, it would be because neighbors of the tent that was in question, it would be the neighbors coming to the aid of the person that wasn't in the tent at the time, and so it was a community, and I immediately got that impression. I was like, oh, okay. But it still was like I'm a bit of a princess, in case y'all haven't noticed. Like I'm not, I used to be a bartender on Bourbon Street. Like I'm used to a lot of to affluent lifestyle and stuff. To some degree, I mean, I made some mistakes along the way. You don't get these missions unless you have the balls to do it. But I was like flabbergasted at how gnarly it was. It's very sad, right? So. But I wasn't about to let my vibration go down, so I'm like, okay. But I'm shaky. I'm a little shaky because as I turn on the Skid Row, I see like just what used to be just sporadic tents, like just seas of tents of people that are just thrown away and all living on the street and like stuff like that. And that girl repeated itself and other girls, and it was just like I saw one guy banging a woman right there in the middle of broad daylight with no condom, and it was just so sad, right? So I'm about to walk into the Union Rescue Mission, which is the place that popped up when I Googled, and I'm reaching for the door, and my higher self, the Divine specifically, I hear, "You are on my payroll now. You're absolutely safe, unless you think you're not, in which case you are on your own." And then a slight little shove. Okay, and I go in, and I'm a little jarred, but I immediately understood what I was conveying to myself and what my unconsciousness was saying to my conscious state. And so I go in, and they didn't have any room, and it was about 10:30 in the morning, and they said, well, why don't you try back after dinner, which is at 7, so about 7:30, and try to be here early, because otherwise you can't get in anywhere. And so the way it works is that you check these places, and then the problem is that if you don't get in one, you don't have time to go to another one to get that space. And this is right as COVID is now reaching California. Because remember, COVID took, 7-8 days to get from New York to California, because it didn't take a plane. It apparently went by bus. And it wasn't for me. I was in Louisiana, so I wasn't at the beginning of it. But you see what I'm saying? It started in China, walked across. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all that yet. And so I'm in this location. I'm just like, okay, crap, I don't know what to do. And so my intuition just said, do me a favor, just go find some place to go hang out for the rest of the day, and then you can come back later. And so I did. And so I walked from downtown LA to MacArthur Park, and I sat in the heat with nothing to drink and no food or water or anything, because I didn't want to spend the last of my money on that, out of just preservation, just to see if I could extend it a little bit further. And sure enough, I went back, and I was the second person in line, and luckily I was, because the third person didn't get in. And so I barely made it. And so I slept on the mat that night with my little, I didn't get to eat at all that day. And I slept with my little laptop wrapped around my arm, and I just slept like that. But they had security, and it was super safe. Yeah, you were on the ground, but it was warm, and I was grateful, like usual. I'm always grateful, but it was very, very humbling. And I was alright, you know. And so I was inside. And so they wake you go to bed by 10, they turn up the TVs and stuff, and then you're on your mat, and then you sleep till 5:30, I believe it is, and then you are, after breakfast, you're out about 7, right? And so I did that for a couple of days, but they were playing the news non-stop because it was the pandemic, and I don't watch that bullshit. I just don't watch it. Here's the way I look at it. It's a virus. It spreads. That's the news. I don't need to see, like, every oppressive lie that's going on out there. Like, I just didn't need to see it. And so it's just like, alright. And so I knew what was going on, and I was perfectly aware of it, but I'm a servant of God, and I believe in God, so I was like, I'm not worried about this. And so I would leave pretty much immediately. Normally I would have, but that's the same day that they shut down the city, and then everybody was basically sequestered into their places, and nobody could go anywhere. You had to have some place to go. Okay. Well, I didn't have a place to go for the first 2 days, but I was tired of listening to the news, and I didn't have any money to do anything. So I looked around, and I was like, you know, Miss Cherie, who runs this place, has a really amazing location. She literally has, like, there's prayers on every single pillar, and they do prayer at night that is non-invasive and welcoming to all faiths. And that's how you do that. You know, it's really good. And so I felt really safe and stuff. And so I'm there, and I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. I'm a grown man. If they're feeding me and I have a place, even if it's on the ground, at least I'm inside. I'm going to put my exchange in. And so I immediately volunteered. And I think it was 4 days in. So 2 days in, I volunteer. 4 days in, they need somebody. St. Thomas, I'm going to call him. Comes running up and he goes, "Oh, you wanted to do this?" And I said, yeah, let's do it. And so there were a couple positions available. You could either work in the laundry room, or you could work in maintenance. And I forgot what the other one was, but I was like the St. Thomas, and another guy who had really good energy, I think his name was Sean, was working in the maintenance. And so I was like, I'm going to work with maintenance. Well, here's what I got. I got to scrub toilets. And, you know, I don't know if you know much about throwaway human beings, and I'm going to keep referring to them like that because that's how the society sees them, otherwise this wouldn't be happening. And so the throwaway human being that is treated unfairly and ignored, if you've ever wanted to be invisible, just dress like a homeless person and walk the streets of any city and no one will ever see you. It's amazing. You're invisible. Anyway, when you treat people like that and the only attention they get is when they go to jail because they don't want them on the street, then you don't treat the bathrooms very well. So let's just say it was disgusting and gnarly, and it was during the whole toilet paper shortage. And so there wasn't enough toilet paper, and so no place, and so there's no stalls in the bathrooms either. So if you have to go number 2, whether you're a boy or a girl, you have no privacy. Very, very subhuman. And I was cleaning them, and I just kept saying, "Hey, Jesus scrubbed feet. At least I'm not scrubbing feet." And I went, "Okay, but all right." And so I did that every day, and I did that from, I'd say, from 6:30, and then we'd take a break after lunch. So I did from 6:30 to about 7:30. We'd have breakfast, and then after breakfast I cleaned the whole area, and then sometimes I would stick around till lunch, and then clean after lunch, and then I could go. And so, but usually I would be done after, so it would be about lunchtime, and so after lunch I would take off. And so I would wear my mask, which was super oppressive, and I couldn't really breathe. Actually, just thinking about it makes my nose run. And so I went, and I would get on the bus with my mask on, and of course everybody was petrified to go anywhere because everything was shut down, except every single road crew, all the construction crews, all of the police officers, all of the postal workers, who coincidentally always have more time off than the rest of us ever do if you consider President's Day and all of the national holidays. But during this pandemic, they were also at work. And the entire city was looking prettier and prettier and cleaner, and the street cleaner, and everybody that was missing was you. But everybody who makes the city look better was present. Now, isn't that interesting? So, and all the buses were running. Although I will say that I'm sorry, I'm in the bathroom having to film here because the noise next door, the music stumping, so I didn't want to interrupt. In any event, so it's really warm in here. Oh, I might as well show you since I mentioned it because it's so. I've already interrupted. So look, this is what you do when you are in these situations in order to take your power back. You just kind of have to make the best of it. And so it's a way for you to get your power back. And so instead of me getting all angry and losing my cool and losing my high vibration and giving away my power, I decided I would make a bed in the bathroom, and that's where I would sleep whenever it got really bad. And that's pretty much all the time. But you know what? There's nothing but blessings in the situation at the end when I'm done talking to you. But I just wanted you guys to understand why the light might go out or why the fan's blowing. It's because I'm having to make shift with what I got. And I'm lucky because I'm in a... Anyway, I'll get to that all in a minute. So I got on the bus, and the city was being cleaned, and everybody was absent, and the beaches were still... I don't know if you guys have been to the beaches in California, but the sand, they have these trucks that come by, and they level out the sand, but nobody was allowed to go on the sand or in the water. It was really bizarre. And I would walk with God for the rest of the day. And I would commune, and it was very monk-like, and I was during the purification process. And so I didn't have any money, and I didn't have anything to do, and so then the curfew was 9 o'clock, so then I would always be back by 9. Well, I think it was about 2 months in of me doing that every day. A trucker came into this wonderful facility that Miss Cherie ran, because Miss Cherie was the bomb. Like, I think if I ever have a mission, I'm calling that woman, because she is a saint. And there's a reason I call him St. Thomas. Like, these are really amazing people, and it was God's house. So, I mean, that's the reason I wanted to put it in my exchange. But in any event, a trucker came through that would stay there very rarely, but when he would come through LA, he didn't want to pay rent at a hotel, so he would stay at the place. Well, he had the pandemic. He also had a pre-existing condition, by the way, but they said it was the pandemic. Okay. So, and he passed away. Alright. Allegedly. So, what they did is what we already knew was coming. They came and they made an example of the Union Rescue Mission, and they shut us down. And they wouldn't let anybody in or out, and so all the homeless that was out was now on the street, because it didn't just affect that one mission, it affected all the missions in California. And they did it for health reasons. Now, mind you, that you're talking about people who eat out of garbage cans and smoke cigarettes up to other people, so if there's an immune system that's going to beat this shit, it's going to be these people. But we're going to play along with the facade for now. Okay. So, what ended up happening was that they shut us down, and you have to remember that when you volunteer at these missions, you get to move up to the bunk beds. And so I was in a bunk bed, and there was, I think it was like 64 guys in a room, and then the women had the same thing. It was really beautifully well run, very clean, but you were still in almost like a prison-like situation, we were grateful. And so what did they do? Because the guy passed away, even though he was on, I think he was on the 7th or 8th floor, they shut our floor down and they quarantined us. And sure enough, somebody got it. Well, I was like, well, big surprise there, because if you smoke cigarettes after each other because you don't have the money to pay for them, then you're probably going to get a virus, right? Like, it's not, you didn't need to be Einstein to figure that this was coming. And sure enough, they closed us down, and they sequestered all the guys, and they quarantined us, and they said we couldn't go anywhere, so we were literally there. And then they started asking us questions about if we had any pre-existing conditions, and I was like, well, yeah, I'm super asthmatic, I can't, And they're like, oh, well, you have to go, you can't be here. And so what they did is they forcibly made us all leave, and they sent us to these really beautiful motel or hotel rooms, right? I was at the Mayfair, that's where they sent me to. And I had the most gorgeous sunset views every night. It was just fantastic. The problem is they told me I was going to die. Apparently I tested positive. Okay. Here's the thing about working for the divine. The divine says when I'm going to die, not you. So, I told the divine, well, I'm going outside. And so I'm just like, you're not going anywhere. Just, are you afraid? I'm like, nope, not afraid. But, I'm playing along. And I ended up putting on Britney Spears. And me and Britney Spears, we basically danced for, I think for the next week till the world ends. Because I was like, how appropriate is that? And I was just like, totally like, not taking it seriously. Because, honestly. So anyway, so then what ended up happening was that because you're not allowed to leave in a quarantine facility like this, they would allow us to have a cigarette every 2 to 3 hours, depending on what mood they were in. Now, here's what you guys don't know about what was going on during this period. So, with the buses, which were running, they would stop and make them wait 5 to 10 minutes at different locations just to agitate the people on the bus. And I started to realize that if you notice, during the entire pandemic, a nation that is known for war was exceedingly polite. Fascinating. And I realized it had to do with the mask. You see, when you break a human being, according to the lynch letters, you start with the masculines that are aggressive, and you suppress them to the point that they break. Only you can't do that anymore directly. So what you do is you make them, like you make people docile the way you do with bees, with smoke, where you spread smoke all over the bees, and they get confused or they become more quiet, and so that you can wrangle them. But with the people who are not wrangleable, are warriors, what do? You send them to jail. So you separate the herd so that they make examples out of the warrior, and they send that person to jail to possibly die during a pandemic with fear, and then you leave the women and all the people who are more docile to basically play along and not have any rights. And so that's what was happening. So when we were in this location, they would mess with us in order to get us to trigger, to get angry. And so something happened on the 8th floor where they started to get angry. It was just one floor in particular that was having problems. So I don't know who the staff member was there, but they were not very cool. And so they decided to cancel all of the floor's cigarette break. And I had it by this point, and so I said something. Now here's the thing about going on mission, for those of you going on mission. Don't ever embarrass the divine like that. You are there on his behalf, her behalf, its behalf. So I'm telling you, the next fracking day, they threw my ass out of there in trash bags. They gave me 2 hours. And I didn't even complain to the divine. I did not, because I knew exactly what I had done, and so I said, okay. So, during a pandemic where the world is falling and everybody's dying, according to them, they send me to a transitional facility in a room with 8 other men with no air conditioner, people who have been thrown out of jail, and people who are drug addicted. And they put me in this location. I can't sleep. There's no air conditioner. I'm on the 2nd floor. The heat is rising. I'm miserable. I have asthma. But there's a pandemic that you can't be near people. Well, what about all of us? And that came from quarantine. So you see how this is already falling apart. Okay. So this place is it was a nightmare. The people who run it are trying their best from what I could see. There's a couple of questionable things, but honestly the caseworkers are all legitimate, and so they're really helpful and all that stuff. But you can't, it just wasn't making sense. Everything was falling apart. And so this is so we start getting towards 4th of July, and I don't know if you guys remember in California for 4th of July, but they were throwing the grenade bombs for fireworks, the ones that set off car alarms that shake the building. They were throwing it at our feet. I really got good at it. Like, now you can throw a bomb at me and I'm not going to react. I'm going to either die or I'm just not going to have a reaction to you. But I considered it training. But that's what they were doing. And what I started to wonder is, I'm like, why does it keep going off like bombs? Where's all these bombs coming from? We can't even afford food right now. And I realized it's because they were hoping that we would react negatively. Remember, they're trying to separate the classes. They're trying to make sure that Black Lives Matter does not succeed. They're trying to make sure that we, the homeless population, are ignored so they can move us about. Alright, I'm getting ahead of myself. But that's all true. And so I kept realizing that all of these bombs are coming not from them buying it, but I have a feeling it's coming from other higher people who are going, here, set these off. You'll have fun with it. And who would ever believe the kids that are doing it? They would never believe it anyway. So I'm in this location, and I can't sleep. It's super hot, all this stuff. So I ended up having to go many a night and spend the night walking around Los Angeles, and all day in Los Angeles walking around with no money. Because remember, at this time, there was no offices open. All of the government agencies were shut down, so nobody could get food stamps, nobody could get their IDs, nobody could get their social security card. Everybody was trapped, and you were caged. And so I'm going through this experience, and I suddenly realize what the divine is asking me to do, and it's basically just report as his eyes and ears on ground zero and just go through all of it. So during this pandemic that everybody's all freaked out about, we're not wearing masks inside. They're not requiring it whatsoever. And here's the best part. There were 10, 12, 24 people per room, depending on which section you were at. Okay. And you could go and come as you pleased. And they weren't testing us. but they were making a hell of fucking money off of us, weren't they? It turns out that if you are in one of these facilities, you are point systemed. And the more points you have, the higher risk you are, and the more money you're worth. So there's no incentive to move you out. In fact, it's to put as much pressure on you to act out so that you have to stay in the location and you can never be treated as a human and trusted to move on your own. Well, I'm not that stupid, so I played along, I didn't say anything, and I was like, alright. Every day, I would get up at I think it was like 7:30. I would either eat or not eat, and then I would go and walk the entire day till 9 o'clock at night. I had to come back for curfew by 10, so then I would go in, and I would try to lay down. Of course, they would let the music blast, even though they weren't supposed to, and so nobody got any sleep. And it was just a horrible situation. And I'm in this room, and I'm asthmatic, and so I'm starting to have asthma again. I had to go to the doctor. It was a whole thing. Okay. So, I started to notice, though, that the people who you would... There's no anger anywhere. Everybody was awfully okay with this little break. And I realized it's because they were paying us with stimulus. But here's the problem. Not everybody was getting stimulus checks. In fact, if you were in a homeless situation, you would never get it because you didn't have an address. And then I started to realize other things. Like if you end up on food stamps when you finally did get approved, it took me 7 months to get my food stamps. I'm not kidding. It took me all the way from February to August before they even gave me my food stamps. So I had no food, no nothing, no water, no... other than when I was in the location, but I couldn't stay there because they were like really, like just it wasn't run very well. It was run well, but it just was like very oppressive, and so just a lot of things weren't making sense. I'm just telling you what literally happened to me. And so the Divine and I are spending the days every day, and then a lot of nights. I would go to the beach when I couldn't sleep because it was so hot. There's no air conditioning. There's the middle of summer, and we're talking about I was there till August. In California, in the heat, on the second floor with 9 other guys, well, it was 6 guys in my room. I think it was 5 guys in the other room, and then 24. Like, I mean, it was really bad. And so the heat would rise. And so, as an asthmatic, I could not survive like that. And I kept complaining, but nobody cared. They were making a lot of money. Okay. And so I would go and I'd sit on the beach in Santa Monica, and that's the only place that had Wi-Fi, so I would listen to music all night long on the beach, and, you know, I knew that anybody could attack me at any point, but I knew I was protected by the Divine. The Divine was very clear on that, and so I would just commune with the Divine, and we were cool. And I did that for 5 months. And then one day, I had finally had like a moment where I couldn't handle it anymore. I was just so tired of walking. I mean, I had been walking since January all the way to August. And I couldn't, you couldn't stop to go to the bathroom anywhere. They were really weird about that. Like, you know how, when you break a dog, or when you train a dog, when it can go to the bathroom, and you make them wait for you all day long? That's what they had done to the homeless population while you were all gone. They had shut down all the bathrooms over safety concerns, which is kind of hysterical, because most people don't even wash their hands after they pee. But during this thing, and it's a virus, which is a cold, but they're going to go ahead and do that. So what they did is there was only 3 porta potties in all of downtown Los Angeles. I mean, 3 bathrooms that were actually with people at it. And those were only 3. And then all the rest of them were disgusting porta potties. But there's a whole pandemic. Okay, so again, digress. So we were being trained like animals. And so if you acted out, you went to jail. If you had to go to the bathroom, you had to be dehumanized and go to the bathroom on the ground. But remember, there was no toilet paper, so you didn't have any TP to wipe your ass. And so you couldn't stop at a restaurant to buy anything where you could go to the bathroom either, so you literally had to either hold... I mean, it was breaking us. It was like how to break a horse. It was exactly the lid slurs, just in a more intellectual way. It was horrible, right? And so I'm trying to keep my vibration high. So sure enough, one day it finally got to me. And I remember what the Divine had told me. The Divine had said, hey, you're protected as long as you know that you're protected. But the moment you think that you're not, you're on your own. Well, sure enough, I had gotten really upset. I've been crying. And I'm a human being. And at this point, I was over it. But I knew I couldn't leave the mission. So it wasn't like I was asking to leave. I was just complaining, right? And so these 2 guys tried to assault me outside of where I was staying because I was gay. And it was because of what I had told you. Because I had literally let fear enter my sphere that it happened. But they didn't know who they were getting. I'm from New Orleans. I'm not the one. And so, literally, what happened was I let the adrenaline start running. I didn't say anything, but I looked into their eyes, and I just stared at them, and I was bracing for impact. Because I'm the type of person, if you hit me, I'm not the one going down. But I don't like to go to that place. But I was ready. And Divine, all I heard from my higher self, I should say, wasn't Divine. My higher self just said, stand your ground. And I did. And I don't know what my facial expression did, but they backed away and quickly moved on. And it was a blessing in disguise, because when my caseworker heard about that the next day, she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, hell to the no. Okay, you have asthma, right?" And I go, "Yes." And she goes, "Great. Wait for me." And so about a week later, I'm in a Van Nuys Project Room Key, which is for people who are who have conditions that are pre-existing, and so that makes you high risk. And so they put us in these really beautiful hotel rooms in Los Angeles area. At least this one was. And so I went to Van Nuys, and this place was run to the T. This one is run by LA Family Housing. And LA Family Housing is, they not only were helping you, but you didn't have a curfew. You were able to come in and out. You were checked every week for the virus. Nobody was getting, and if you did get sick, you immediately went to quarantine, but you didn't shut everybody was just getting checked all the time. You were fed well. You were taken care of. There was no noise. It was run well. You had security, and nobody was allowed into your room except you, and they checked. I'm talking about LA Family Housing hit the ball out of the field on this one. So I'm there, and I'm so grateful, and I had been grateful this whole time, but I was just so relieved to finally have some quiet time, because if you're like me and you're trying to bring peace to the world, then the one thing you want in your house is peace. And so it was the only place that has allowed me to have that thus far. And so, wouldn't you know it, when they did the renegotiations for the contracts, guess what's the only hotel that did not get renewed? That one. All of the other bad places, all the places I've been to that really suppress people and hurt people and all that stuff, they were renewed. But where I was at was not renewed. So they made us move. Now, this is the only complaint I have about that whole situation, is there's a woman there who got on a blowhorn, and she knows who she is. And she went through the building on the blowhorn saying, if you don't get a place to go right now, you're going to be thrown back on the streets. This place is closing. Now, that's a lie. What was going to happen is if you hadn't got a place by that point, they were going to move you to other locations. But what she was trying to do was inflate her numbers. You see what I'm saying? And so that's the only complaint I have about this location. And sure enough, wouldn't you know, I fell for it and went and got a place. And I went to my caseworker and all that stuff. And I was moved to a place that's so much worse, only to find out that they kept the place that I was at, where I was safe and quiet, and they kept it open after I left. So they fucked us over. Oh yeah. So I ended up at this place where I'm at now. I work for the Divine, so I'm going to be very polite with how I phrase this, but please read between the lines. Okay. I get here, and there is a 5 p.m. curfew. It turns out that there's no uniformity to these places, so unless you are under LA Family Housing, which is running the shit out of their stuff the right way, if you go to any other locations, it's just like a satellite that they're just trying to get you in so that you have a place to go. They don't control it, so they can't do anything about it. So they can do whatever they want at these various locations, and this is a perfect example. So this location has a 5 p.m. curfew, which means that if you have a job, you can't get home by 5 p.m., and you're not allowed for any reason back in after 5. You have to wait till 7 every morning. Now, just wait to see who's here, okay? So, I'm like, okay, first warning sign. I'm like, fire, there's smoke here. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be right above it. I'm not going to say anything. So, I come in, and the entire first floor of all the different buildings are all elderly Americans, most of which are in wheelchairs or walkers. Now, remember, they have a 5 p.m. curfew. Okay. So they can barely get to the corner. It takes them an hour to get like half a block. But you see what I'm saying? So and then if they get left out, it doesn't matter how old they are. They're not allowed in. They have to stay on the street all night long. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I come in, and they're going over the list of what are the do's and don'ts at this location. Now remember, I've been at the other location, so I'm already very comfortable with this scenario. But here's something that they didn't cover. When they were reading it, they didn't tell us whether they could go into our rooms or not, which of course they can. But if you understand how these places work, you have some people who are just coming out of jail who were released because of the pandemic, who are still technically, just coming out of criminal behavior, and you put them in these locations and they think they have privacy, and they didn't cover with them that they can go into their rooms. So talk about further triggering them back into flashing out and doing something stupid. It's really, really horrible. Okay. And so I mentioned to the lady myself, I said, but you can go in my room, right? And she goes, yes. And she didn't clarify, didn't say anything further. Okay. This plays a part later. So I go to my room, and there are 2 beds. And I'm like, oh, it's a nice room. And I can hear the music next door from my neighbor. I'm like, well, that's going to be a problem, but I can rise above it. And I go sit on the beds, and they're both broken. So I go down and complain, and they ignore me. It takes them 5 days, and me having a very politically correct bitch fit, to drag them up to my room to show them, and they bold-faced lied to me and said that they didn't fucking know that the beds were broken. And here's how I know. The next day, I'm a humble person, I was chit-chatting with the maids. And the maid said, oh, that's not true. We told them way before you got here that those beds were broken. So they made me sleep on the floor in this hotel room for 5 days because the beds hurt my back so badly. And I complained for 5 days, but I was a piece of shit to them. Okay. You never know who you're talking to. I'm not anybody in particular, but you never know what kind of voice the person has that you're doing this to. And so I started to snap a little bit because I was like, oh no, my worth is way more than this. But I said to myself, the divine would never have me go backwards like this because I didn't do anything. I did everything I was supposed to. So what am I looking for here? And so I'm finding them. Okay. The neighbor next door is playing his music, and I'm all about freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of all of it. So I'm not about to go tell that man to turn his music down. That is not my job. I have read the paper, and it says you cannot play music really loud. So it is the job of the employees who have security guard watching this happen at the door, not doing anything. So I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to rise above it. But after been sleeping on the floor for 5 days, and every day that happening, it started to get to me. It started to break me a little bit. And so I started to pay attention to what I was saying earlier about how you break a horse. And how do you break the spirit of your people so that they don't ask questions and they do what you ask. Okay. And so then that led me to actually say something in a very polite way to him. And things happen, but I rose above it. Okay. And I looked around, and so here's how it works. There's nothing but elderly people here, ex-criminals, and then people who have had to move from other locations that got shut down, which was only one. But I'd asked to move rooms to be polite. So the guy said, hey, can I just move? I mean, after 5 days on the ground, I'm having to sleep in the bathroom, which is what you guys saw here. And they were like, oh, well, why are you sleeping in the bathroom? I go, because they can't with the music. Can I move to another room? And they go, no, there's no more room left. I talked to the maids again. And not only is there rooms, but all of the third floor and all of these buildings are empty. That's line number 3. Okay. Now I'm getting hot, but I'm keeping my cool. And I'm just kind of reporting just little bits here. I'm trying to be very polite and be politically correct and all that stuff. Okay. So today, I am sitting at the bus stop. Oh, wait, no, there's one more thing I need to tell you. So remember I told you that there was an issue with the fact that they weren't telling the people that they would be going into the room? Flips out. Because he walks into his room and he sees that things have been moved. And he asks them, and they say that no, they weren't in his room. And I know for a fact they were in his fucking room because I watched them do it. Oh, yeah. Now, just so you know, he just got out of jail. And he's a good guy. He's trying his best. And so he and I get along really well. But they lied to him. And I know it. And here's what's best. And they keep doing it. Every time that he leaves, they go into his room. But what they're doing is they're making it seem like it's the maids. Now, I've befriended the maids. And I'm not about to see what's about to go down. Because he lost the other night. And rightfully so, by the way. And he's like, I'm going to lose it. These people are going to my... Now, the only people that he knows that goes into his room are the maids. He doesn't know that the others are going into his room on nights that he's not here because you're allowed one night out. It's prison. And, but we're blessed because at least we're outside. But see, that's what they're using. They're using the fact that you're so grateful to have a place to control you and to make you feel like you have no voice. And so what the wrongs that are going on here, nobody is able to report it because they're threatening to throw you on the street. Oh, yeah. Okay. So I'm listening to him for the whole day, and I know that I'm in danger. He's been shot 6 times, all this stuff. And so I'm just like, but I'm not judging him. I'm saying that they are purposely propelling the situation to make him lash out. And I'm trying not to let him lash out. But it's not my responsibility. So I'm being told by the divine, do not get involved. And so I'm like, alright. He said, you have a platform, which is today. Okay. And I'm on the floor in the bathroom. Okay? Because of the fact that I was listening to him lose his mind. Okay. I go down and I say to them, I go, hey, just so you know, I kind of heard my friend, I don't know if he stubbed his toe or something, but he was complaining that people had been in his room. I don't think that that everybody knows that you're allowed to go in for that piece of paper. Now, while I'm talking to the guy, a blind man in the building comes walking towards us with his stick and goes, who do I talk to about people going in my room? And the guy says to me, oh, I think that they go over it with them. Alright, buddy. And the blind man walks right up and he goes, why are they going in my room? And the guy goes, oh. And I'm like, okay, I can't. And so I'm trying to stay calm because I know what the divine's asking me to do. It's this moment right here, to be very clear with what's actually going on. Okay. So this morning I'm getting up to go to the bus stop, and I'm sitting there, and I'm not going to say who it is, but there is an older person that's present with me. And they are a military family. Like, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Okay. These are really noble people that I'm talking about. And I'm talking to this person, and they have been here for almost a year, and they've been pleading to get an apartment, but they refuse to do it. And they keep lying to them, saying that they're going to get an apartment anytime, but they know it's not true. And so they've been reporting it, and nobody's helping them. You see, elderly are worth more points because they're more susceptible to the virus. And LA Family Housing can't do anything, per what I've been told, because of the fact that it's not their location. LA Family Housing is run by LA, but these locations are doing a favor by hosting human beings as opposed to having them on the street like the throwaways that they keep trying to get rid of. So I'm listening to this person, and when they found out that they were complaining, they threatened to falsify documents and have them institutionalized. This person doesn't speak a lot of English, and so they would have gotten away with it too. I don't fucking think so. No. Okay. So at that moment, the divine and I went, that is not going to happen. The person I can testify to in court is very much in control of their minds. And the fact that I know for a fact that I personally also had an issue with the documents that I refused to sign 2 pieces of paper, that I'm willing to bet you that if you investigate this location, that both of those pieces of paper have been falsified by someone signing in my behalf. And I can prove that. Okay. So here's the deal, people. My wonderful fellow Americans and all of you wonderful people out there. These are your mothers. These are your fathers. These are not people in this location that are throwaway drug addict, whatever you want to justify why they're going through. These are elderly people on walkers, wheelchairs, that don't have a way to get around the city and that will be hurt if they go and are being trapped and being lied to and being lied about, because what they told her was that they would make her seem crazy. No. So here's how I think this all went down, and I'm going to be very, very honest at this point. There was a child trafficking, huge debacle going on in the news, and a lot of very important names of very, very big people were on that list. And at the same time, China and America were having trade agreements. Coincidentally, as soon as we were about to find the names of those people, this broke, this virus. Okay. And it was coincidentally then blamed on who? The people we were having the trade agreement with. By an actor. And that's the best way to give him credit at this point. Who, by the way, because of our rush to impeach, not once, but twice, doesn't that qualify under double jeopardy? He cannot be impeached now when we find out what's actually going on, can he? Premature ejaculation, people. So, walks away free. Okay. So what ends up happening is that they utilize this situation to release a virus. Okay, I'm gonna go with it. There probably really is a virus, but it is a virus, and a virus is cold, and most people live through the cold. Okay. And here's how I know. Logic, guys. Walk with me here. It went from China, did not board a plane, and went from time zone to time zone to time zone. Remember, it hit Italy first, decimated Italy, before walking through the rest of Europe, and then eventually hitting England. But it never boarded a plane to South America, or it never boarded a plane to North America. Okay. Then somehow it finally got on a plane at this point when it hit England, once England went down. So it was like literally nation by nation went down. Coincidentally, right? Oh, but that happens naturally. Al, you're just crazy. Okay. Jumped over the pond, hit New York first, decimated New York, but didn't go to Florida. It didn't go to Louisiana for 2 days. Okay. So then nobody drives either, because obviously it's walking. And so then it goes and it hits Louisiana. It shuts down my entire world, and every single woman in the whole world no longer has a job because most of them work in hospitality. Oh, I wonder if there's anything there. Okay. It takes 2 days from New York. Actually, 3 days if you think about it, because there's a whole day where it hit. Oh, everything shuts down. And then 2 days where it takes to get to Louisiana. Then it takes 4 days from Louisiana to get to California. Now, we're just getting this virus in South America. I'm sorry, what planet are y'all on? Am I missing something here? So, everybody gets shut down, and everybody gets put in quarantine. Everybody freaks out. Except who? Pharmaceutical companies. The people who created this. Remember, this is a man-made pandemic that is just supposedly fight bioterrorism. But they swear that they didn't have a vaccine to it. No. Let's think about this logically. If you are fighting bioterrorism on behalf of any nation in this world, then you would be sanctioned by that nation, and you wouldn't be able to get paid unless you had what with the virus? The antivirus. So another lie. Lie. You can fight with me, you can get triggered, I don't care. I'm watching these innocent people go through hell because of this big bag of bullshit. So we're going to clarify this real quick. So, there's no antivirus. And then magically, after 4 months, they guarantee that you will not have long-term reactions from this vaccine. How can you know that if you've only tested for 4 fucking months? I'm sorry for the expletive, but wake up. There are people really getting hurt around me every day that I'm just looking at and I'm going, what is going on here? And I'm not trying to make you guys feel belittled because you were just duped. Con men are good con men. Everybody falls for a con man. But come on now. Here's how this went down. The child trafficking thing was going on. They needed to get everybody's attention away from it because of who's involved. Because when you know, you won't be able to forgive the people that are involved because they are your best. Like, you think that they're white light. They are not. But I have to wait for the news on that one to break. When a journalist finally gets off their ass and does what they're supposed to be doing, then maybe we can find the stories that are going on. Because there are good journalists still out there, but no one can hear them because everybody's worried about the pandemic. Okay. And now I'm getting not triggered, I'm getting passionate, but you get my point. So they tried to get the child trafficking to be derailed so that you don't find out. So they derail us with this whole big bag of bullshit. And so they orchestrate it, and here's how they sell it to the world. We're offering you the opportunity of once in a lifetime to ensure that your nation is protected in case of a pandemic. Because we're going to do this, and so the whole world's going to agree to it so that we can poke all the holes so that if it ever happens, that we will not have any problems. And they're going to be grateful to us when we release the information because it will have been for the right reasons and they will all forgive us. The problem is that in order for this to happen, there are a lot of politicians and people who had to take back end stuff. And so they're corrupt. And so what do? You muddy everybody's hands in the same water so that nobody can step forward. Because any moron who stepped forward first that is actually involved in this is going to be indicted. And so they know that. So everybody has to stay quiet so this plays out. And y'all can think I'm conspiracy, but come on now. You can't break logic. You can't unsee truth. And once you see this, you're just going to be like, son of a bitch. Okay. Because that's the only way that this is illegal with the vaccine, where they can guarantee that no one will get hurt, is if the vaccine was actually tested ahead of time. That's lie number 2. Okay? So either the vaccine really is only tested for 4 months, and they are guaranteeing, y'all, you can't even take, some people can't even take aspirin without having allergic reactions. There's like a quarter of the population who die from penicillin, but you're telling me that this one fucking miracle drug that you created in 4 months breaks the mold. You're hurting people. You are physically hurting people with this big bag of bullshit. Now, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that you can make tons of money from the vaccine and nobody will ever know. So how do we catch all this? Well, first of all, let's start with the homeless population. Let's cross-check their names against the names of the people who have passed away from this disease and eliminate those that actually had pre-existing conditions that would have possibly led to death. And I guarantee you that there will be no people on that list that actually died from this fucking thing, because it is a cold. And if there is, they had pre-existing conditions. I'm not saying that people didn't die. They did die. But the fact that they're hiding the fact that they died of one thing is so dishonest and so you can't trust them anymore. Because you know that some of these people actually had, most of them had pre-existing conditions. But they're hiding that information with the fact that they died. Of course, we care that they died, but you're not telling their family the truth. You're not even letting them look at the body. That's not normal. If it's not the other word that's forbidden to say, then why would you burn the bodies? Okay. So, you cross-check the names. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go through the people who actually are alive in the homeless population, and you're going to go over the documents that they supposedly signed, and you're looking for fraudulent signatures, and that's when you catch them. That's number 1. And that will lead to the first songbird singing her little song that tells us who told them to do it. And then we follow that bread trail all the way up, and I guarantee you at some way down the line you will find a bunch of child traffickers. Now, I could be wrong on the child trafficker part, but no one can argue the fact that something is not right here. They are breaking you. That's what they're trying to do. The Black Lives Movement is a movement that needs to happen now, not later. It needed to happen when it started. But you can't do that if you are telling people lies that they can't get together. You canceled holidays. You can't even go hang out with your own family. Where are our brains? Is our fear so bad that we're afraid to actually live our lives? That we're not even going to see our parents? Because technically, if this is such a real pandemic, then this might be their last Christmas, and we are not going to go see them because we're afraid. But yet, we're not protecting our fracking kids. They're not wearing masks. They don't have to wear masks. In fact, people who have pre-existing conditions don't wear masks because it's too hard for them to breathe. But then why are we surprised the numbers are still there? I don't understand what's the missing piece here. There are elderly people who are terrified that if they say anything at this location, they're going to get thrown on the street. And it's not just here, it's all over. And this is just one location. California's actually doing a bang-up job. Can you imagine the other place? Can you imagine a third world country right now? And what? And I know that people are going to be like, oh, Al, you're going to get into it for that. No, I'm not. God's going to carry me on this one because, no, you cannot fool God. You cannot lie, and it's a lie to God. Like, this is one thing that was baffling me about the church is not standing behind their boss. How can you sit there and say, obey the law, but you work for the big man, and the big man is clearly saying to you that you're safe, because I'm safe. I have been smoking cigarettes behind people while I was doing this experience because I knew it was a big bag of BS. Never got it. Not once. And if anything happens to me now, the whole world's going to be like, that's really kind of suspect. Like, that's a little late, buddy. Because also I have the most recent... It's negative. Guys, They really are trying to make people. What they're doing is that they're using the anonymity of the homeless that have no rights. And now with the census having basically been all falsified because nobody would actually take it and you couldn't get the right information. So it's all bullshit. So we have no record of anybody, any numbers for this year. All of it is all a big bag of crap. And who's getting hurt? Everybody on the planet. So here's what I think is about to happen. Once this little story breaks out, and it may not be through me, but I'm the first one to tell you exactly what I have first-hand experience watched happen. This place. Well, first of all, I'm going to ask the boss if I could take a week off now that the mission is over and go someplace quiet that is free of noise and just veg out. I would love to do that. I'm going to ask the boss for that tonight, to be quite honest with you. And then I'm going to watch as LA Family Housing investigates this fucking place. And then we're going to look at the signatures and all that stuff and blah, 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 blah. But here's what I know is going to happen. Once you all start to realize what I'm saying to you and you start to look into this, we're going to wait for the first person to realize that indictments and jail time is coming to everyone who knew about this and has kept their mouth quiet. And the moment that happens, someone's going to sing. And then the story's going to break loose. And then someone else is going to sing. Because nobody wants to take the fall for this. I guarantee it. Human beings are not animals. We're not better than animals, but we're also not here to be slaughtered. We're not here to be manipulated. We're not here to be oppressed. Black Lives Matter is going to happen. Guess what? Sorry, racist people. I know that you have a lot of money, but they're going to be equal because we're all equal. Gay rights are going to be equal. Women are going to be not subjugated. We are not putting up with this big bag of bullshit anymore. And I don't care how much smoke and shit you blow up our butts. You cannot unknow the truth of life. And especially because I've firsthand had to walk through this experience by myself with no one helping me except for very few people who I befriended. You can't say that I have any interest in lying. It's just, there's no ground for you here. The only thing that I'm going to say to those of you who are involved in this is save your own ass. Because you are going to go to jail. The next thing that we do, besides cross-checking all the names and all the people who have died, is we look at the names of all the people who have died, cross-check it for pre-existing conditions, and then what we do is we check the vaccine. And we have independent people worldwide look at what's in those vaccines and see if it's just a fucking flu shot. And then we go after the companies that are making money off of the flu shots for the insurance. And then we go after the pharmaceutical companies who obviously need to either come clean that they had already made this pre-existingly when they first made the thing, or that they're doing this for money. That's the only way they're going to save their butts, because I guarantee you there's no way that this is real. This is a test. And they really thought, and honestly, I really think that they thought they were better and smarter than God. I really think that they thought that would happen. But the one thing you can't do is you cannot control stupidity. And there are people who have made mistakes every step of the way during this entire process. And those mistakes are about to bite you in the butt. But that is what my year has been like. These are human beings. They're not dogs. They're not cats. And even dogs and cats deserve better treatment than this. I watched them shit on themselves, on the ground, no toilet paper, belittled, humiliated, thrown out of places because they finally had a nervous breakdown, or thrown in jail to die, or this or that. And I'm just watching, and I'm watching humanity die. I love you all. I really hope you get it now. But that is what the spiritual mission means. It means sometimes you have to have the balls of steel and say the truth in order for someone to finally hear these people. They can bring down the wrath of God on, it won't happen, but they could, and I would be just fine because I'm doing what's right for humanity. And not an ego, but out of the fact that I'm watching innocent people get hurt really badly. And I'm thinking of every single mother out there who is desperately trying to find a way to pay for her babies, and no one's helping them because of this. No. You don't have to believe me, but the divine's about to step in. You never know. Never underestimate God. You never know who God has in front of you. And you never know that they might not even know that they're special, or they might not even know that they've been chosen for something great down the line, but they had to do this first. They don't know yet. But their truth is truth. You cannot hide a peacock. You cannot hide truth. You can see it, smell it, hear it, and feel it. You guys have been betrayed. And it's time that we face it and start helping these people out now. What's going on at this location alone? What happened at the transitional house? Not acceptable. What's going on with the lies? No. And now you know that God's been watching all of it. I hope you guys have a blessed night. That is my account. My name is Arevalo. That is what has been happening to me over the past year on mission in LA. LA Family Housing is the only outstanding example so far, and I'm willing to bet that they don't know how bad things are because they're trying to do so much at one time. But there are people that need to get involved, and that's where you guys come in. That's it for me. Have a good night.